This program is brought to you by Ignite TV. Now you're in command. Visit Rogers.com for more details.
Hello and welcome to the Stage Door. It's a real treat to be back here after a little while, but we have a really exciting show to share, a show that is part of the reason that I haven't been doing my hosting duties at the Stage Door, because I've been working to create this really special show with the Graham Academy. Graham Academy is presenting Godspell June 2nd and 3rd at the Corner Brook Arts and Culture Centre, 7:30 p.m. And it's a real treat to have some of the cast to share a little bit about the show with you. I have Simon Wojciechowski, Carly Rae Moland, and Ryder Bussey here joining me. So, welcome to the Stage Door. Thanks for coming on the show.
Happy to be here.
So before we dive into talking about Godspell and what that's all about, which is quite a lot, before that, a little bit about each of you. So Simon, you're in grade 12 this year, so and a lot of your childhood has been spent in Corner Brook, but of course you're not originally from Corner Brook. I think you're pretty well a local now, but what has that experience been like to come here as a child and be a part of the arts community in Corner Brook growing up?
Well, it's always been really fun. I mean, I've been in the Rotary Music Festival since before I can remember, you know, and in choir since before I can remember. And so seeing the musical community here in Corner Brook has been honestly an amazing experience. Always a very open, welcoming, family environment. It was always really fun.
Yeah, so would you say that music has been kind of your main introduction into the world of musical theater, that music kind of guided that launch?
Absolutely, yes. I initially started with the singing of musical theater songs in the Rotary Music Festival, and then I thought as I got older I should want to explore more of the actual acting, and then later on a bit of the dancing parts of musical theater, and then in the end doing whole shows with the Graham Academy from its first year.
Yeah, so. And this show, Godspell, certainly has the full gambit of music, acting, and dancing involved in it. So absolutely. It's a good culmination of those things as you head out into the next chapter. So Carly Rae, what about you? What have your starts been since being in Corner Brook and growing through that?
I came into musical theater because I love music and I love performing. I've been performing since I was 6 years old, and it's something that I've always really loved. And it's new. It's nice to get into all of the musical theater aspects of that, because this is my first year in Graham Academy also. Yeah. So.
And it's been so fabulous to have you. We'll talk a little bit more about your music, I think, in adjacent with the show, just because, of course, you play and sing and do a little bit of songwriting, from my understanding. So yeah, diving into that, what has that been like to go from kind of singer covering songs into musical theater performance?
Well, it's similar because music has a lot of feeling, and then when you go into musical theater, it's like every song means something in musical theater, and it's really interesting to add so much emotion into that. And so yeah, it's really, really nice.
Excellent, thank you. And Ryder, of course, you're no stranger to the theater scene here in Corner Brook as well. So where did it all begin for you?
Well, I started in TNL, which was just straight acting, and then I don't quite remember when I joined Graham Academy. I think it was second year, maybe.
Yeah, so 2018, 2017,
yeah.
18, yeah.
And so from there, it's been going strong since. Yeah. And it was a big switch to go from just like straight acting to then jumping right into musicals. It was like almost like a flip of the coin.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think, you know, there is a real joy in musical theater, both from the performer's perspective and the creative team's perspective, as well as from the audience perspective, because you get to step into this world where music is part of how characters express their emotions. And Godspell is very much an emotional story. It has a lot of fun, it has a lot of heart within that. It has a lot of silliness, but the heart's there under that too. So what then for you, and this is an open question, so answer if you have an answer and we could pass it around and have discussion. What have been some of the enjoyable steps of exploring those stories and exploring all the parables and the different ways that they're told and all the songs and the different genres that they are told in? Big question.
While, I think one of the amazing things about Godspell is that while it uses the story of the Bible and the story of Jesus to tell the story of community, it's a very transcendent idea. It doesn't, you can really take the religion out of it, or just sort of, it really transcends all religion, culture, and belief systems. So I think that is a very beautiful part of the story of Godspell.
Yeah, I would agree there. I think really it is about following the word, which at its highlight is love thy neighbor, and I think establishing that community is a really beautiful thing, and that is a universal asset that we all have, is to speak and be heard and to listen, I think is really what happens in the show. It's all different people from different walks of life that come together and find community. What about for you folks?
Well, I think, so the group that's doing the show, we're all really close already. I think it's been great to take that energy into the space when we're rehearsing. So it's not like we're having those first couple awkward rehearsals where we're like, yeah, I think that's been really great to see come to life through the show.
Carly Rae, anything that you've found really enjoyable with this type of theater?
I feel like it's really good to get you out of your comfort zone because, being with people and everything helps with social, being able to talk to people and everything, and just brings everyone a lot closer together because as this is my first year here and everything, I feel because of this musical, I've gotten a lot closer to everybody in Graham Academy.
Absolutely, and that's really fabulous to hear as a person who works with Graham Academy. That's really exciting. A little bit on the history of Godspell from a local perspective. When Theatre Newfoundland Labrador started in Corner Brook with Maxim Mazumdar, the first musical that they put off in 1980, 43 years ago now, was Godspell. At the Arts and Culture Center. And shortly after that, Maxim did a production with the Stephenville Theatre Festival that actually toured through the Arts and Culture Centers, featuring Alison Woolridge, who's a Corner Brook local, as well as Maxim himself, and music directed by Dr. Gary Graham, our namesake. And we were very fortunate that one of the people involved in that production was able to be in Corner Brook not too long ago. Edmund McLean, of course, a very notable figure in the West Coast theater scene, I feel, was here from Halifax visiting. So, we were able to share a little bit of the show as it was, still in rehearsal. And Edmund was very moved by that, to tears. So, moved Edmund McLean to tears. That can go in the review. But I think how was that for you folks to kind of recognize not only the legacy of doing this show, but also the kind of community legacy, to be able to share that with someone who had such an experience with that show? And of course, you all have had some interaction with Gary. We're very fortunate that the Graham Academy started with Gary Graham still with us and teaching. So what is that kind of legacy piece like, to be able to deliver this show, kind of knowing that local legacy that the show has?
It was really beautiful for me, especially since I'm in grade 12 and I'll be leaving now, coming back hopefully, but I'll be leaving now soon. Knowing that I was able to continue a legacy that started so many years ago and sort of bring it back to the community. Yeah, it was really beautiful.
Absolutely.
I think it's a great thing to kind of continue it, because if, say, one of the people who saw it before saw it, they could have a memory of that, and that could bring them back to a really nice place. Something good happened during the show or something.
100%.
And I think it's nice to remind them of that.
Yeah. I think we all know the story of the Bible. I think it's a fairly well-known tale. But what would you say are some of your favorite little moments within this show?
I think it's a pretty obvious moment near the end where Jesus kind of sees that he's created this community. It's right after Judas betrays him, and so he goes around to all the remaining disciples, I suppose we can call them that, disciples, and shares a little moment with each and every one of them. But then the last one, Telly, who is played by Lily Smallwood, who throughout the show is portrayed as this sort of innocent, maybe a bit dim-witted, but also adorably cute character. And I go in and try and share a little moment with her, but then she is so overcome with emotion, she just comes in and goes for a hug, and that is right before the crucifixion. So I think that's my favorite moment, and I doubt there'll be a dry eye in the house during that.
It's certainly a striking one, and that's what I love about this show is it goes from silliness and almost games that you're playing with each other, whether it's a sound game or building a show as a storybook theater piece, to those moments within it in the subtext that are so full of heart, that just shine through. And I think that's what in the end stands out, is that we see a bunch of people in a community having fun together, and then we realize, oh, this is how much that meant. And that's how we live. That's what we do when we're in a theater class together, especially because we're breaking those barriers down, which is a very emotional process. And then we have the silliness, but we're also so happy to be there. So Carly Rae, what about you? What's a moment that stands out within the show and your character's journey? Which, you know, Simon and Ryder are Jesus and Judas. Carly Rae, you're kind of playing an extended version of yourself in this. In the script, the characters are named for the person who played the role on Broadway. So in our version, it's really that you're extending yourself into this world. So what's a moment that stands out for you in that?
I would have to agree that the last moment is really like the most emotional one, because it's like when, you know, you're in the character and it's like Jesus is dying, Jesus is kind of like your best friend because he's been there with you through like the beginning, and he's just kind of made you grow as a person. And so then, you know, watching him die is like really emotional.
Yeah, and this is where a lot of those lighting cues do come in, is really focusing those moments to make them come through. And then I think it's important to note, because the show is so much about community, is that after that, it slowly builds back up in that finale. So it doesn't let you linger in that space, and it sees that, right, we carry on and we share and we love thoroughly and fully. And I think that's what I love about the ending of this show. Ryder, what about you?
I'd say my favorite moment in the show for me personally is probably the crucifixion, because it's like the citing incident of the show, I guess. And like from a character standpoint, it shows like it's so like brutal and like, I don't want to say fun, but enjoyable, I guess, to do.
Well, as an actor, I think, you know, you have to commit to that. And as Judas, you know, this show doesn't have the, you know, if we compare it to another notable religious show from a similar generation, Jesus Christ Superstar is telling the Passion in the literal sense, from kind of point A to the crucifixion at the end. Whereas Godspell focuses so much on the community that as an audience we almost forget it's coming until it does. And instead of having, you know, the literal cross and the nails, and it's very visual. It's very much a feeling of, and it's Judas himself that puts Jesus up and elevates him to such a level that allows that community to exist. And I think, again, regardless of anyone's religion or faith, I think there is so much to take away from this story. Regardless of your belief system, I think the company has different belief systems. You know, there are some people who are Christian, there are some people who are agnostic, there are some people who are atheist within our young company, and the story rings true wherever any person's belief lies. And I think that is the amazing thing about this story, is it makes this work so accessible to an audience to see see beyond. Sometimes we put a wall around religious stories. But I think this one is accessible, and it's about that community, which is undeniably universal, which is so exciting. Unlike Judas and Jesus that we know a lot about, you are bringing yourself into your character. So what has that been like?
It's kind of like me, but like I can be more of myself almost, you know? Because this music is really about like everyone coming together and everyone being able to be themselves. And like with all the costumes and everything too, we got to bring in like our own clothes and things that really represented ourselves, which is really fun, and to be one of the parable tellers, because you know you get to do all that.
I think it's one of the other joys of this show. Is one of the things I said to most of the company was, bring an outfit that makes you feel like you, but also an outfit that you could wear without worrying about being judged. You know, if there was no judgment, how would you dress? And it's been amazing to see so much personality shine through from some of the casts as they like choose these pieces that they don't wear at junior high or high school. And of course, doing this show with a junior high and high school age group, it is a challenge because you must be silly. You must step out. You must be larger than life. It's rooted in clowning, but it's also rooted in real heart and carrying that through. So it has been really quite amazing the past few days especially to see it all start to come to life in that way. So what would you say going down the line have been the really rewarding things about this process and this show, and what has been a challenge about this process in this show? Hopefully the challenge will have some reward once you're feeling like you've climbed up to take on that challenge. So we'll start with you, Simon, with that one.
Well, definitely the rewarding thing is seeing it all come together in the end, and both physically as in the show coming together, but the cast and the community and the whole idea of the show coming together, because it's very easy for it to sort of go away from what the writer originally wanted for the show. So definitely seeing the idea and everything fall into place has been really rewarding. And as for challenging, definitely getting the message, probably the same thing, getting the message across and having everything come together. Because, as I said before, it's very easy for it to sort of go into a bunch of sketch comics, as the author's notes say, the director's notes say. Do not let it go into just a bunch of sketch comics doing some comedy sketches on SNL. And that is a very big challenge for it to come together with all the larger-than-life words and sort of excerpts from the Bible that are obviously very difficult to memorize. But no, everything coming together has been very rewarding, but also very challenging at the same time.
Absolutely, and I think that is a great point, you know. I've never done a show that has such a daunting note to the director from the writer, from Stephen Schwartz, who of course later went on to write Wicked, which is one of the most successful musicals in the world. It has a movie coming out soon, and you could really see the roots of, I think, a lot of musical theater in this piece, because it has a bit of every genre. It goes to a vaudeville tap number with you two. It has this beautiful folksy, jazzy, acoustic rendition. We do have a live band, which I should really mention. Like, we are so fortunate in this community to have Alison Clark helm a band with Darlene Steeves and Keith Simmons, Ford Burden, Nick Hamlin, Brian McHugh. Like, we are so fortunate to have that 6-person band, along with our music director, Katie Barrett, stepping up on trumpet and background vocals, and myself with some killer slide whistle solos and background vocals as well. So it's been really fun to have that. So we'll talk a little bit about what it's like to perform with a live band in a moment as we work down the line. So, Carly Ray, what would you say is a challenge, and what is a reward that you've had in this process so far?
I think that one of the most rewarding things is the music, and seeing not only like the ensemble, like when the harmonies come into a song, it really builds it together, and there's so many harmonies in Godspell. And like By My Side, it sounds, you know, nice with just the vocal, like just the main vocal, but then when you add in like all of the other harmonies and everything, it just makes it really come together. Yeah. And there's other people too who I've never heard sing by themselves before, like Sophie Swift when she sings Learn My Lessons Well. She's so quiet, and then she just like comes out and she's like this total rock star, and it's amazing.
Yeah, it has been so fun to see a lot of students really burst out of their shell with this show. And I think that's another thing that the show really allows. So what has been a challenge?
For me personally, probably the dancing, because I'm not much of a dancer myself. But you know, it's been really nice too to progress in that, because at the beginning of the year, you know, I was in my little side steps and everything.
Nailed a box step.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, and it is, you know, there's a lot of big dance numbers, and certainly, Carly Rae, I can speak as someone who gets to watch it. You are doing it very well. No one would ever say, oh, well, Carly Rae can't dance. No one's going to point that out. The ensemble has really, really grown through this. Ryder, what about you? A challenge and a reward?
Well, a challenge, again, probably what they said, dancing, not my strong suit. I have 2 left feet. Ask anybody. I actually do. It's bad. And also, I think getting my head around the like complexity of the story, because it's not just like they meet, you know, it's not like bullet points.
And Judas is tricky.
Yeah.
Judas cares. It's not.
Yeah.
You know, the betrayal doesn't happen as someone who's a villain and plotting against. It's someone who cares very deeply. So I can see that challenge.
Yeah. And then a reward has been like, as an actor, like finding that I can do that like serious and like gritty, intense stuff, because a lot of that, it's really uncomfortable to do. And when I was a little bit younger, I used to just be like, I'm funny, only funny stuff. But in these past year, I've realized that like I have the ability to actually do that, and it's been great to like really hone in on that, I feel, in this show, and get it to like where it needs to be to like pursue theater after high school and stuff.
Fabulous.
So.
Well, I think those are some really great answers. And of course, you know, I should say the show has 26 young artists, and I think it transcends beyond a youth production. It is artists delivering some really wonderful artistry. So don't let it being young people scare you off. It's young people singing 8-part harmony, dancing, acting, carrying these scenes, and offering some creative vision to this show. That's one of the unique things about it as a director, is it's not a show that you can really say, this is how this scene's going to go. Okay, it's a scene that's like, here's my idea, what do we think, what do we have? Because there's so many different ways of telling these stories and making them work, that the ensemble has to commit in the sharing of that as well. So as we wrap up, here's the last question. What is the takeaway for the audience at the end of the show? For the people that go, what is the thing that they should be leaving the theater with their mind on?
One of my favorite lines in the show, love thy neighbor as thyself. I think that's a good takeaway. And just remember that you're a part of a community, and to always try and expand that community and love everyone in that community. And by community, of course, I mean the world. Just love everyone.
Yeah.
That's, I think, a good takeaway from that. And I think it's a very beautiful message. And that is a big part of Godspell, is that it's a community building show. The whole point is that Jesus is there to build a community, and then when he sees that it is built, he goes on his way as
he knows the rest of the journey. Yeah. And I think it's quite interesting, Simon, that you've just finished a speech on citizenship in Ottawa with the Rotary. So you've been very community minded in the past month between that activity and focusing on this story. So I think that's a really wonderful message. Carly Rae, what about you?
I think that being yourself is just something that really shows through this musical, and because all the characters, they all come from different walks of life, and they're all very different, and then they all come together as one community, and everyone's just themselves through the entire show, and like I said before, through their style or just personality or anything, and it's really great.
Great. Right.
Yeah, I think it's just that, you know, you gotta be nice to people. Well, in like rudimentary terms, I guess you gotta be nice to everybody. And I think if you gotta build a community, but not try to like stand out in that community, like in the director's note, he said, don't make it 10 sketch comics fighting for the spotlight. You know, you gotta do stuff that like helps this community, not pushes you forward. You know.
Yeah, and I think you know, one of the big moments in the show as it winds down is the song "Beautiful City." You know, we can build a beautiful city. Yes, we can. Yes, we can. Not a city of angels, but finally a city of man. And I think that is the crux of this story, a story that's been told since the 1960s, and yet the message is still ringing very true that we need to work together to make something beautiful. And I think that's a spectacular message, and that requires being yourself. It requires loving others, loving yourself and loving others the same way. It requires all of those things that you mentioned, and I think that's a really beautiful thing. So I really hope that we get a wonderful audience to share, because the audience is a part of that community in this show. It's a very unique show at the intermission. The audience is welcome to come up on the stage, mingle around a bit, have a glass of grape juice. It's wine in the script. We're a young cast, so it's grape juice. Might be wine in the lobby. But it's a really special thing that, you know, the end of Act 1 is you are the light of the world, and it's talking to the audience. It's sharing and loving that. So if you want to be a part of that community, we'd love to have you. June 2nd and 3rd, that's this Friday and Saturday, 7:30 p.m. Tickets are available through the Arts and Culture Center website or calling the box office there. There is a group rate too, so if you bring 4 people, you save a couple bucks on your tickets. Make it a nice outing to support these young artists in Corner Brook, to support the legacy of musical theater in Corner Brook, and to leave feeling good and feeling like you can build that beautiful city, because I think we all can. And I think this is an important message to be able to share and recognize that. So thanks so much for coming on to the stage door.
Thanks for having us.
Folks, I hope you get your tickets for Godspell, June 2nd and 3rd at the Arts and Culture Center here in Corner Brook. This has been Ian Locke, and this has been The Stage Door.
About this program, we'd love to hear it. Email or call us, or send us your feedback through social media.
Looking for the best way to get the Major League Baseball games you want to watch? Rogers Super Sports Pack has you covered. With MLB Extra Innings, you'll have a premium ticket to out-of-market regular season games, with all games available in HD. Don't miss the action from the games you want from both the American and National Leagues. MLB Extra Innings, part of the Super Sports Pack. For only $35.95 a month, Rogers customers get all this for one all-inclusive price. Order using your remote starting on channel 431 or visit Rogers.com today.
Sometimes, for a wish to come true, it takes a kingdom, because together is stronger. Tied tight, united we stand.